Powered by Riverside FM.
For decades, tales have swirled around this remote mountain, woven into the fabric of the infamous Alaskan Triangle. Pilots reporting impossible aerial phenomena, hikers encountering eerie silence and unexplained lights. But the stories go deeper. Whispers of a hidden alien base, buried beneath the icy slopes, a secret the government desperately tries to conceal, and a CIA remote viewer who claimed to have seen it all. Tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks.
He's alive! Have you checked the children? Get out!
You have scoured the podcast world and finally found us, Newsworthy with Steve and Jerry, where we delve into all things mysterious, macabre, or out of this world, and decide if they are truly newsworthy. 2 words and 2 question marks.
Hi, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Buying your first home can be overwhelming, but here are 5 tips to make the process go smoother. Number 1, find a lender, me, Ed Locke, that can answer any questions you might have and help you get pre-approved. There are multiple options available based on your situation. Number 2, work with a real estate agent you can trust. Number 3, don't rush the process. Take your time and know that the process could take some time. Number 4, consider all the costs. Number 5, get a home inspection and review it with your realtor. Keep these tips in mind, budget for yourself, and you'll be that much closer to making your dream of homeownership a reality. So reach out to me at 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity.
Brett, you're back.
I'm back.
We're excited.
Yeah.
Yes, we
For
are.
some reason, people just don't want me to get here. I got a freaking flat tire on the way here. I was like, crap.
Was there a van near you?
It wasn't.
What about a Suburban? I bet there was a black Suburban.
It could have been.
They're trying to keep you from
The snipers are just, they're probably on Simple Man's over in South Isa, just on the top of the roof.
They had heard what we're discussing tonight. They're
Yep.
trying to get
It's
keep
the
the
government.
word from
Yeah.
getting out.
keep the message. Keep the man down. That's right, Jerry. Welcome to Newsworthy. I'm Steve.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Jerry.
Glad to have you here this evening. We're excited to have you. We're excited to do the show. We're excited for a lot of things. This topic is a big one. Jerry is, of course, not so enthralled with it.
He will be.
He will be. We'll change his mind tonight.
I've always said I'm open to learning what palm readers have to tell me.
Yeah, there you go.
So we shall see about this palm reader.
I see. Speaking of things about things that people actually know, did you know in order to open up a zoo that you are required to have at least 2 pandas, a grizzly, and 3 polars?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's the bare minimum.
Oh.
You probably have half the pandas in the world.
Probably.
Well, they can make more. They do that anyway now.
Yeah, they got the dire wolf, which is not really even, I don't know if we talked about that or not.
We did.
We did.
We did, yeah.
We did while you were gone.
Yeah,
Oh, he wasn't here? Okay.
No, he was getting his back hair braided or something.
that's right.
Gotcha.
No, he was hunting dingoes in South Africa. That's what
That's
That's what he was doing.
I get
You
on
live such an
so many
amazing
adventures.
life, Brett.
I know.
And you keep this fair skin. I don't know how you do it.
I'm an influencer now.
Well, I didn't get almost stopped by the government trying to prevent me from getting the truth out. But I did have an interesting week.
That's because you're on their side. Duh.
Well, maybe that's why
They're
this
like, we got to
happened.
get him there.
I was actually abducted by aliens this week.
Oh,
It
really?
was kind of weird. They made me wash my hands, clean my room, eat my vegetables. Turns out I was on the mothership.
I saw this one. I was worried about
He's so
that
jealous.
reaction right there.
Can you tell he's so jealous he didn't get this one?
Oh my goodness.
It's okay. Just appreciate. Don't hate. Appreciate.
I'm letting it savor.
Okay.
Is what's going on here. It's savoring. That's what we're doing.
I got you.
That was terrible. Don't tell Jerry.
I got a story. So last Halloween, I went to a Halloween party. I wasn't wearing a costume, so they wouldn't let me in. So
Really?
I put my wife on my shoulders and tried again. The bouncer said, I told you, no costume, no entry. I replied, duh, I'm clearly a turtle. To which he asked, who's that on your back? That's Michelle.
No.
What? That was hilarious.
I actually like that. Actually.
That's hilarious. Don't even think. The other joke I was gonna use the other joke, but now I was trying to like incorporate it into a conversation. I couldn't do it.
You
so.
can't give long, exasperated sighs with the joke that you told. That's not allowed.
Oh, fellas, those are bad.
That was a great joke.
Michelle, that was terrible.
That wasn't terrible. That was a good one.
How was your guys' week?
Quite good,
That's good.
other than the brief alien abduction.
Yeah. Were you probed?
No.
Oh, are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
You never know.
I'm
Really?
convinced my middle son was abducted, and they
You've told that story a couple
Yeah.
times.
We should have him on encounters one time.
yeah, right. The problem is he doesn't remember anything.
Right.
He
Well,
just
I mean,
woke up and had a surgical cut on his buttock.
it's weird.
That would be scary.
It was
Jump.
so weird. And it was completely healed. It wasn't even like it was a fresh wound. It was just there.
Them aliens are good.
It was strange. Strange indeed.
I would say so.
My other son, my oldest son, lives just outside of he lives in Arizona, just outside of Roswell.
That's pretty cool.
Or not Roswell, I'm sorry, Area 51. You can probably drive 2 or 3 hours and be there.
It'd be cool to go visit him and just go to.
If I ever go visit him, I'm absolutely doing all
Yeah.
the things.
Yeah.
That's happening.
The Grand
Driving by the
Canyon down there,
fence, is
too.
that one of the things?
Well, yeah.
100%,
That's all you can do.
That'd be like our.
I would take a
Profile
picture
pictures
there
and
for
stuff, yeah.
real. Hell
Yeah.
yeah. One of the pictures by the white. Now, here's the thing. You don't have to be at Area 51 to be near those white signs. They're in Idaho too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You where it says very clearly, you can't be here. You can be shot for being here.
There's numerous
And
government facilities.
well, I know this one in particular because I stopped one day on my way. I was moving out there. I stopped to use the bathroom and I was sitting there peeing on a fence. And I looked up on the fence and there's that sign. And I got to looking around and there was all these tubes coming out of the ground. And I got to the next town or whatever and I stopped and asked. And apparently that is the strategic oil reserves of the United States. They protect that pretty well.
You just peed on.
Oh yeah, all over them. I mean,
You were
there's
trying to aim for the poles. You were like, oh yeah, I think I can hit it.
it was bad, dude. I was like, oops, I guess they got good pictures of me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I hope they zoomed in a whole lot.
They put it on the news. If you see this man,
Watch your fences.
that's hilarious.
Oh gosh, it was so long ago. I don't even know if it's still there. I'm sure it's still there. I don't know if it's the same. I don't even. Back then, it was just literally, it was, you could walk 20 feet off the road and there's the little fences and there was hundreds of them. And they just had the fence around like the little things that come up out of the ground. That's all. It wasn't like a big, huge fence. It was weird.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Pretty
But
weird.
then Idaho was beautiful.
Oh, dude.
I'd love to go out there, like Montana.
Gorgeous area. Just unbelievably gorgeous. It's almost like when you wake up and you look in the mirror. Now, Jerry wouldn't know anything about this, but you would. Like you wake up, you look in the mirror, and you're like, wow. Yeah, it's almost like that. Except maybe better.
Think so.
Well, yeah, Now, Jerry, you, on the other hand, may have my picture like somewhere in your room, and maybe you actually get to.
He's another one.
It's close by. It's outside.
Okay, yeah.
I keep it in the garden, trying to keep the scarecrows away. So it serves a purpose. Just saying.
So rude. Rude.
But honest.
I guess. Jerry, what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we are discussing palm readers. I'm sorry, we're discussing Mount Hayes this evening. Mount Hayes, for those that aren't familiar, Mount Hayes is a huge mountain in the heart of Alaska. It reaches the summit of over 13,800 feet. It's one of the highest peaks in the eastern Alaska range. Often stays shrouded in clouds and snow. What's your chuckle for?
Nothing.
Got to be something. You don't want to share?
Nope.
The mountain is normally covered in glaciers, numerous significant glaciers carving deep valleys and help to create the dramatic landscape. Tonight we're going to discuss some of the notable formations and the sheer power of these slow-moving rivers of ice. Very rugged terrain. You can expect steep, jagged peaks, exposed rock faces, challenging terrain that's made it very formidable for mountaineers. That's part of the mystique of the mountain is it's so hard to access. There are no roads, no trails. If you plan on climbing it, you basically have to fly there. It's about the only way to get to it.
Wow.
Which also means that it's really hard to access, obviously.
By design.
By design. That's
maybe
the way they want it, right? Absolutely. So said the fortune teller. Its sheer scale and often pristine white mantle against the Alaska wilderness creates a breathtaking and awe-inspiring sight. Now, we mentioned that it's in the heart of the Alaska mountain range and the Alaska Eastern Range. Its proximity is close to the headwaters of the Delta River, adds another layer to its geographical significance and also its role in the region's hydrology. Again, it's extremely hard to get to. It doesn't matter if you're trying to climb it, if you're trying to find the UFO base buried beneath it, if you're trying, for whatever reason that you want to go, it's extremely hard to get to. Early exploration and the legend of Bradford. Sorry? Yep. Messed up my notes here. Sorry about that.
I was like, wait, what? Did you glitch?
I did.
Did you
Very randomly.
Jerry, are you frozen?
I didn't glitch. My notes glitched.
We are in a matrix. And
apparently so.
They are trying to keep you, they're trying to hush the man.
They are.
I had a half of 3 sentences that, somehow made it into one sentence. So, we'll try to figure this part out. The unconquerable reputation. For a period, Mount Hayes had a reputation as a particularly challenging, even unconquerable peak, which added to its allure for ambitious climbers. Now, its remote location fosters a sense of untouched wilderness and a feeling of venturing into a truly primal landscape. In the vastness of Alaska, remote peaks like Mount Hayes can sometimes become the backdrop for local legends and unexplained phenomena, though perhaps less so than areas more associated with folklore. Ultimately, Mount Hayes embodies the spirit of Alaskan adventure, the challenge of the wilderness, and the enduring human desire to explore and conquer formidable natural barriers. That is Mount Hayes and the subject we're covering tonight.
Yes, it is.
Steve, you want to tell us why it's interesting?
There is so many reasons why this is interesting, and not only we're gonna touch on a few tonight.
Only a few,
but those few are going to lead to future shows because some of these go so deep they have to warrant their own show. And let's just start with one of those, Project Stargate. So Project Stargate was founded, or I'm sorry.
Another glitch. We're in trouble.
Wow,
really trying to keep
what
this-
is wrong
they're
with my
trying to keep
brain
this
today?
episode
So
Quiet. Got my
This makes
tire
all of us.
blowing up.
They tried to stop Brett before he got here. Me at the beginning, Steve at the beginning,
wow, it's crazy.
trying to keep the man down.
So, well, this was just unfortunately my brain trying to figure out why that was wrong, but it wasn't wrong. It was actually right. So in 1977, that was the thing I was hung up on. I thought it was 57. It wasn't. It was 1977. The U.S. Army, in conjunction with the CIA, started a project called Project Stargate. Basically, word got, it's a chicken egg situation. We don't know which happened first. We don't know if the we heard that the Russians were using psychics for the trying to figure out if psychics learned how to spy on Americans, or if we got the jump on that and the Russians heard that we were doing it and they started. But at any rate, it was in the height of the Cold War, and we were both very much running to try to use seers or people who can see in, I guess, in other places, palm readers, as Jerry says, to actually be able to spy on folks. Now, I'm just going to touch on the very, very beginnings here because Project Stargate is something that I really want to do a whole show on. Hal Putoff is a great person to bring into this. Pat Price. There's many names that are attached to this that in and of themselves could each get their own show. We're not going to do that, but definitely going to put Project Stargate in that. The main reason it's important for Mount Hayes, however, is because one of the things from Project Stargate that they did was they took what they would do is they put dudes in a room, or dudes, I say people in a room, and they would give them just coordinates. And those people would draw or pencil what they saw at the coordinates given. One of those, and what gave this program original credence was that, and we'll just touch on this a little bit. Pat Price actually, they gave him coordinates, and he started rambling off about pool cues. About, and I don't remember the numbers, Green 9 or whatever the numbers on the Project Green Cue Ball, whatever that was, for several of those. And they came into the office and they said, he's full of crap. That is the address to my cabin up in the woods. Well, the very next day, they come in to do the same thing. Did you see this story? So the very next day they came in to do their next day's work, and there was like 10 different agencies there wanting to know why the CIA was spying on their programs from the NSA. The cue balls were actually part of a NSA base, and those were so super top secret that only a very handful of people had access to those. So the fact that those were brought out and released into the airwaves, not necessarily into the general public, but into the airwaves, threw up a huge bunch of red flags and wanted the people to know why they were doing. Now, Jerry, I know you're skeptical about Project Stargate, but the U.S. government funded that from 1977 all the way to 1995, and some rumors persist that it still continues today. So that's a lot of money to throw at something that, according to the reason they shut it down, gave them no actionable intelligence.
And the government doesn't waste money.
Yeah,
So.
never, ever.
Never.
They don't waste money.
In the history of governments.
Anyway, so one of the things that they did, and one of the things that they saw in the writings in Project Stargate, was in a base that had been built in Mount Hayes. And in Mount Hayes, it wasn't a normal base. In fact, it was a base that was constructed by, operated for, and with the assistance of humans, meaning extraterrestrials. This was their base, and we were allowed to be there and be assistants in their experiments. But didn't move the needle at all. He's just like, it's all right.
Well, you left out a couple of facts. We'll get to those later.
Oh yeah, well, I have to give you a bone, man. That's what we do, right? So, many pilots, first of all, in this particular area around Mount Hayes, is one of the, if not the highest concentration of UFO sightings anywhere in the world. Just to throw that out there. Local pilots, hunters, residents have all reported seeing unique, unusual lights and craft in the area. You mentioned it, Jerry. This place is completely isolated. You have to fly in to get there. There's, you can't drive to Mount Hayes. That's not possible.
It's not a couple of teenagers going out for a drunken drive.
Not even a little bit. Proponents say the base is a Cold War era project, mainly built to help ward off the Russians coming across Alaska. Native Alaskans have for generations have had stories of sky people or spirits, and those are usually anticipated or interpreted as UFO enthusiasts or evidenced by alien contact. Of course, there's government cover up around Mount Hayes. U.S. government says that there's no such base at Mount Hayes, that there's no base at Mount Hayes. And that they actively attempt not to conceal it because it doesn't exist. However, there's not a lot to conceal at Mount Hayes because, as you said, most of it's covered in snow most of the time. It's really easy to conceal something when it's under 3.5 feet of snow.
And if you can't really get there that easily.
Right.
But how do you get supplies to this extremely huge base in and out without disturbing the snow?
Oh, you just use a helicopter. It's fine.
Alien technology.
And they get the materials and supplies down through those little tubes that you pissed on in Idaho?
No.
I'm just wondering.
They have the side of the mountain opens.
Okay.
I'm guessing. I've never been there.
Yeah, I'm just imagining somebody eating their soup. Like, damn, it smells like piss. It tastes like piss.
Oh, geez. So let's talk about some of the origins of some of these conspiracy theories. In 1986, there was a Japanese radar incident. Wildly cited but unverified claim involved a 1986 incident where a Japanese military radar allegedly detected a massive unidentified object described as 300 meters long near Mount Hayes. The object reportedly moved erratically before vanishing, with some accounts suggesting that it was internalized into the mountain. The story was popularized by many UFO researchers. Although it lacked proper documentation, it is often relayed secondhand as a true story. The story, the remote viewing experiments, as we talked about, now, the remote viewing has been called pseudoscience for a long time. However, lots of things are called pseudoscience before they become real science. Just want to throw that out there. Jerry's like, no, that's not right. But it's right.
No, you're 100% correct. Kangaroos at one time were considered a conspiracy theory.
They were considered a
proven
cryptid.
to
Yes.
be. Yeah.
What?
Sure.
Yeah.
Before it was widely known that they existed.
That's a true story. So were platypus. Just saying.
They exist.
They do. The point is, there are many things that actually are.
Well, I know,
true.
I get that, but like, I guess maybe because you have to travel so far to Australia. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So the remote viewing and parascientific practice involved and developed during the Cold War, the CIA, it was Project Stargate, as before mentioned, referenced that there were UFOs perceived in an underground complex beneath Mount Hayes, and that it was filled with advanced alien technology and non-human entities. Again, we covered that. in the 1980s saw a heightened interest in UFOs, partly due to declassified documents from projects such as Project Blue Book, which investigated UFOs. Alaska's strategic importance during the Cold War, with bases like Ellison Bay Air Force Base and Fort Greely, led to speculation about secret government projects. So, just a couple of the big things about Mount Hayes. What do you think about the whistle about remote viewing? What's your guys' thought on that? We're going to cover into that a little bit more, but when we do Project Stargate. But the government deemed this worthy of spending money on for over 30 years. So 20 plus years, yeah.
Well, 77 to 95 is 18 years.
Yeah, and that's if you believe it ended in 95.
Well, first of all, there's zero evidence from anyone, and trust me, there is a ton of people that I like, and I know you do as well, physical hawks in Congress who would certainly be looking for this type of money. One thing we need to keep in mind is why Stargate was stopped in 1995. Did you happen to come across evidence of why the government ended the project?
I didn't go into. I really didn't, because I was going to save that for when we do Project Stargate. But go ahead.
There was an independent review that was commissioned by the Defense Department. It determined that after 2 decades of research, they had failed to provide any scientific evidence for the legitimacy of remote viewing, at which point the entire project was defunded and shut down. 20 years, and you can't prove anything. You can't prove, they couldn't prove that they were right over 50% of the time. If you flip a coin and call it with your back turned to the coin, you ought to be right 50% of the time. They couldn't surpass 50%. I know, it's the government. They come up with a 3-sided coin and lowered the odds to 33% right there, right? It's the government.
It's called Stephen. Oh gosh, never mind. Scott Steiner math is what that is.
Good. I'm glad you come out with that.
Thank you.
No, we can't have 3 glitches in the same show. But what do I think about the Stargate project? I think there's a lot to be said. There's a ton of countries around the world that have investigated similar type things. As far as is known, those have all stopped. Not a single one anywhere in the world was found to be credible, found to be beneficial. Every country in the world didn't stop it if it was good research for no reason. So, yeah, that's, in case you're wondering earlier why I was calling it palm readers and fortune tellers, that's what the results say it is, basically.
So while we're at it, let's talk about
you didn't give Brett a chance to give his thoughts. I think he had something to say. He's probably going to contradict me.
I would agree with you. Actually. I think that a lot of that is just, yeah, I agree.
I think it's wishful thinking. Keep in mind while we started this project, we were trying to spy on the Russians. We were hoping for some magic bullet that
led
would enable
by
us.
and I won't mention his name here, but a person who was a very good fraudster.
Yeah. But I think a lot of it's simple wishful thinking, hoping that you can come up with something that'll give you an advantage over this evil enemy. And I think that there's, normally no such thing as a magic bullet.
Right. Yeah. And you would think that if it actually was a real thing, that, one, we would never reveal that we were doing it because it was actually working.
Sure.
At least in my opinion, I don't think we would, because if it's actively going on, I don't know. Like if we have someone who's like, oh yeah, the Russians are going to be here, or they're planning this, or and it's always like very vague. Like they can never give you anything like actually descriptive. And if it is descriptive, well, we can't prove that. Yeah.
Another problem with the project is it was supposed to be done the way Stephen outlined it. It was supposed to be done by giving geographical coordinates or a specific time reference, something of that nature. What they found out often happened was that they were given many additional cues, that the normal average person could take those cues and build upon it. No different than a fortune teller or palm reader will ask some leading questions to get you to generate some information.
And they're already good at doing that.
Exactly. They're very good at that.
Yeah.
And they found out that some of these people in these programs who really wanted it to succeed very badly wanted it to succeed badly enough to cheat by
Right.
giving cues.
That makes sense. If you're putting a bunch of money into it, you got a job that is literally funded by this program. It makes sense.
It does.
100%.
So I'm not sure Steve wanted us to go that far into detail answering.
That's
but
fine. I'm just curious. What about the Alaskan Triangle?
Mm.
It's a
This is
very
where I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And Mount Hayes is right in the middle of it. Some people believe that it's a electromagnetic flux area, much like Bermuda, much like another project we're going to talk about at some point, the Devil's Sea.
They're all compared to the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, very much so. And this is a place where very many mysterious disappearances of people, aircraft, ships have all happened. People link these vanishings to paranormal phenomena, time warps, energy vortex, some alien abductions. There's the story of the Japanese passenger line that the pilots were so concerned that the captain of the plane actually felt the heat from the other craft through the window. So that's pretty. I mean, these are pilots. They're not like people who are prone to fairy tales and stardust. When they tell you they see some really weird stuff out there and make that public, they're putting a lot on the line when they do that.
Yeah.
Not to
I
mention
agree.
the 1946 plane with 46 people on board that just disappeared. Never heard from again. Obviously, in 1946, that could have been an airplane crash in the remote wilderness, and no one would have. The same thing could have happened, but there was no Mayday call. It simply vanished off a radar.
A lot of could have been, might have been, but still a lot of unanswered questions. So I would totally agree. The Alaska Triangle, yes, there's, as I just said, there's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of strange things that have happened. Could there be some potentially sensible answers behind part of them? It's an extremely remote area.
Oh, gosh.
So back in
Crazy.
the 40s, if you had a plane wreck, it wasn't like, you're just going to find it the next day or two.
Yeah.
It wasn't like within 6 months, it couldn't have been covered up with snow and never been found. Even so, for this area, there's which isn't normally real high on the traffic lanes. There's still a lot of unusual activity. So a lot of unanswered questions there.
One side note, the remote viewing did also find a base on the moon of Titan where humans were. Just
Humans
throwing-
were.
Yeah, just throwing that
Well,
out.
see, that would be something that, well, if it was a government-related thing, they could confirm, I guess. And if that was really a thing, would they want to release it? You know,
True. Good point.
even though it's declassified, I still feel like it's kind of like the John F. Kennedy stuff. Like they declassified some of it, right? It wasn't all declassified.
Didn't when Trump got elected, didn't he
did, I guess,
declassify the
yeah.
rest of it?
I guess supposedly is what he said, but
And so far, we've heard
we're still
basically
waiting on
nothing.
the Epstein stuff too. So
The latest on that is because there's like 400 victims under the age of 18, and they're trying to make sure that any of the videos or stuff is not exposing those victims.
Makes
I
sense.
feel like there's got to be a
But they've been
workaround.
they've had these tapes for
Well, I
6
mean, they
years
can
at this
they
point.
can cut out the parts if they do
Right,
find
there's got to be a
out.
workaround.
I'm sure that will come
Yeah.
out. I'm sure it will.
That's what Pam Bondi said in the last interview I saw with
Makes
her.
sense. And I think that's smart to do it that way. Be responsible with it.
Yeah.
Just in the name of transparency, don't throw some 14, 15-year-old kid under the bus like that.
So the closest population center to Mount Hayes is about an hour drive away
Wow.
in Fairbanks.
So tell us what the media says about Mount Hayes.
So there's definitely some skeptics, as we talked about. So some critics argue that these conspiracies lack verifiable evidence. So remote viewing, including Pat Price's claims, is considered as pseudoscience, like we talked about, with no confirmed accuracy. the UFO sightings could be misidentified natural phenomenon or aircraft, kind of like other UFO sightings, not just in this area, but missing persons cases are often attributed to Alaska's harsh terrain and climate. Um, kind of like what we said, this is a very sparsely populated area, so even if someone did go missing, it would be very difficult to find them.
Yep.
Um, However, there is something here, like the UFO sightings, like we talked about in Alaskan Triangle, and there's about 500 to 2,000 missing person cases per year in this area. So it leads some people to think that there is something strange going on. This kind of reminds me, just the missing persons case. It reminds me of the Appalachian Trail that we covered a few weeks ago. Um, there are some really there's two eyewitnesses for this that I kind of wanted to note. Pat Price is obviously one of them, as he was working on this Stargate project for the government. Whether you kind of take what he was doing as true, he still was hired by the government, so I guess it kind of lends a little credence to him. And then there's another guy named he was Captain Edward Ruppelt. He worked for the U.S. Air Force and Project Blue Book. He was a decorated Air Force officer. He was tasked with investigating UFO sightings for the U.S. government, which is very well documented. And as an early director of Project Blue Book, from around 1947 to 1969, Ruppelt documented radar anomalies and unexplained lights near Mount Hayes in the 1950s, which contributed to a lot of the early UFO reports in Alaska. Um, and there are a lot of books and media coverage over this. So some books that, just to note, the secret history of America's psychic spies by Jim Schnabel. That was in 1997. Details the CIA's Stargate project. Another book, UFOs and National Security State: Chronology of Cover-Up from 1941 to 1973 by Richard Dolan. This highlights alleged government cover-ups of UFO sightings in the Alaska Triangle. And then there's several TV documentaries that have covered this story, such as Alaska Triangle, The Secret of Mount Hayes, which was an episode that aired in 2020, investigates the UFO activity near Mount Hayes. Another one is Missing in Alaska, a UFO over Mount Hayes. This aired in 2015, and the episode examines UFO sightings and a missing climber near Mount Hayes. And then Ancient Aliens. They've also done an episode, season 14, episode 15 in 2019, covering this topic. There's also a podcast called the Alaska Triangle. I've not checked it out, but sounds like they're strictly dedicated to this area. So, yeah, it's definitely covered quite a bit.
So what do you think, Jerry? Thumbs up, thumbs down, more information for Mount Hayes.
Well, I don't want to rate Mount Hayes by itself, because if I did, I would have to say thumbs down. But the Alaska Triangle, thumbs up.
Perfect. I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. And I can't wait till we get into Project Stargate a little bit more. It's going to be a fun topic. I think we kind of all know where everybody's going to land on that, but it's still going to be fun to talk about. Is there an alien base in Mount Hayes? Can't think of a better place other than at the bottom of the ocean for one. But I don't know. So I'm with you. If we're talking about the Alaskan Triangle, thumbs up.
I would 100% agree. And I just because I don't think that Pat Price is a reliable source doesn't mean I'm discounting the idea that there is something there. I'm just saying that I don't think that that's evidence enough to conclude that it is. So, yeah, I agree. I would give it a thumbs up.
Wow, look at there. 3 thumbs up. Impressive. That was an interesting episode, but our journey isn't over yet. If you stay tuned, we have an exciting bonus story coming up after this commercial break.
Hi, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. When it comes to buying a home, the process can be overwhelming and confusing. With so many options, it can be hard to know where to start. That's why it's important to work with a certified mortgage loan originator. I have the knowledge and expertise to guide you through the process and find the best mortgage option for you. I will work with you every step of the way to ensure that you are getting the best deal possible. So if you're looking to purchase or refinance, please reach out to me at 502-680-0953. So don't take on the stress of buying a home alone. Work with me and I will make your dream a reality. Trust the professionals and make your home buying experience a positive one. MLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, MLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is equal housing opportunity.
If you would like to share suggestions for future episodes, an intriguing ghost story, or simply tell us how much you love or hate us, please get in touch with us. You can reach us via email at newsworthy@gmail.com or send us a text at area code 540-709-1318.
And now, back to the story. As the story goes, a couple and their two children were hiking in Zion National Park in 1972. Young Becky wandered too close to the trail's edge and suddenly fell off a steep ledge. She dropped 30 feet before a tree branch caught hold of her overalls. Becky hung by the branch, suspended high in the air. Her parents and older brothers simply could not reach her. Becky's brother began singing a hymn, beginning with the words, "Come to Zion, Zion's wall shall sing with praise." Shortly after he began singing, an angelic woman appeared next to Becky, lifted her from the tree branch, and then soared 30 feet back up to Becky's family, placing her safely in the loving arms of her parents and brother. When asked, the angelic figure told the family her name was Margaret, and then she disappeared. No one saw this event occur but the family, yet Becky, her brother, and her parents were all convinced that an angel had saved Becky. Ever since the event took place, other visitors to Zion have reported sightings of the angel Margaret. They spotted her keeping a watchful eye on all who come to explore Zion National Park in Utah. Today's episode brought to you by our great sponsors, Ed Locke at USA Mortgage and Smoking Gun Jerky of Lincoln, Nebraska. Use code CRYPTID10 for a great discount. And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.